So thank you very much. I'm very happy of being here. Thank you for all the Fast Forward Network, and in particular to Anna Fox, Maria Kapajeva, and Katarzyna Gebaronska. Before introducing the two sister Wulf's cultural heritage and giving an insight into the exhibition dedicated to their photographic work, it's worth mentioning the Italian Feminist Photography Project. Some of you know something about this project, which together with other scholars and young researchers and PhD students, in 2022 we started with the goal to analyze the contribution of women to the history of Italian photography. And here on the screen, I would just like to mention our research center, Fotografia, Arte, Femminismi. This is our website, our research project, Fotografia Femminista Italiana, and our Instagram profile, Foto Femminista. Please follow us on your Instagram profile. The research of documentary sources, articles and essays, and the mapping of public and private institutions that have safeguarded this contribution will lead to an understanding, by comparison, of which photographic models and paradigms dominated feminist photography in Italy. And this is within this theoretical and methodological framework for this conference, I propose to deal with one case study of an important institution for the conservation and the valorization of the photographic heritage, the Alinari Foundation for Photography in Florence. The recent possibility to access the entire photographic and documentary heritage of the Wulf's family at the Alinari Archives in Florence. The Alinari Archives in Florence treasured nearly 5 million of objects between photographs and documents and accessories and devices and letters and so on. The Alinari Archives, which has now become a foundation of the region of Tuscany after a long private history for the institution, makes it possible to undertake an in-depth study of this season of Italian photography, and as far as the two sisters Marion and Wanda Wulfs are concerned, to offer an insight into the role of photography that they developed together, both as a tool of social and identity emancipation and as a means of performative and conceptual experimentation, starting, therefore, from an historical and philological study of the archive materials and the photographic production of Wanda and Marion Wulfs, are intended to provide an up-to-date interpretation of the artistic praxis capable of concretely visualizing the changes in women's identity in the first decades of the 20th century, obviously in Italy, thanks to the theoretical and methodological contribution offered by gender and visual studies, and to a perspective of reading photographic images from a feminist perspective. As a co-curator of the exhibition, which was held in Trieste at the Magazzino delle Idee from December 2024 to April 2025, I want to discuss how within an historical photographic archive we can reread the cultural and artistic heritage by adopting a new perspective of study that reveals its pioneeristic feminist message, taking advantage of the new study opportunity that has finally made the heritage of the Alinari Archives accessible, as I said before, and revealed the exceptional contribution of Wanda and Marion Wulfs to the rewriting of the production of women photographers. As you see, in September 2026, the exhibition will be held in London at the Historic Collection. Going deeper into the story of the Wulfs sister, we remember that in 1981, Wanda Wulfs and her sister Maria, known as Marion, closed the doors of the Grand Atelier Wulfs, the photo studio that they had inherited from their father Carlo, who in turn had succeeded their grandfather Giuseppe. Since 1928, the Wulfs sisters had put aside their individual passions, Vanda's love for music and Marion's for painting, to continue a family legacy tied to professional activity that became the source of their financial livelihood. The collection of prints, negatives, documents, and various materials related to the personal and professional activities of this Italian family of photographers is now preserved at the Fondazione Alinari, where it was acquired in subsequent stages through purchases and donations. While the Wulz family's photographic output has been the subject of historiographical studies and exhibitions both in Italy and abroad, the reading of the relationship developed by Wanda and Marion Wulz with photography, both in private and in public spheres, remain less explored and up-to-date. The aim of this paper is therefore to reconsider their overall experience with the photographic medium, from private images in memory albums to their professional studio work. In doing so, the intention is to highlight how the photographic practice was a shared, familial endeavor for the two sisters, a process of identity building and visual certification, symbolizing a perspective that can be defined as feminist. In doing so, going beyond what is the only famous chapter in their history, and in fact in Vanda's history alone, namely the link with the Italian futurism. In fact, only Wanda Wulz, often exclusively in connection with her 1932 image Io più gatto, me plus cat, has received some significant attention. And as far as it was undoubtedly thanks to Giovanni Slista's research on futurist photography and cinema that Wanda Wulz's work was placed within the broader context of Italian avant-garde artistic production. Beginning in the 80s, Vanda's contribution started to gain recognition among Italian women scholars, largely due to the effort by Claudia Salaris to highlight the roles and works of women within the futurist movement. On the international stage, Wanda Wulz has been featured in some of the most important historical exhibitions, one on the screen, and publications on women artists and photographers. However, with rare exceptions, these have excluded references to her collaboration with Marion, both in private and in public sphere, focusing solely on her iconic Io più gatto. The first chapter speaks about the role of family photography as an exercise in identity and escapism. The Wulz sisters' initial encounter with the potential of photography stemmed naturally from their family history, shared passions, and the intimate familiarity with this technological medium, both its material and symbolic aspect, cultivated within the walls of their home cum studio in Palazzo Hirsch in Trieste. Family photography was a constant presence in their lives, just as it has been for their father Carlo and his brothers, who had been photographed as children by Giuseppe. Giuseppe, both as a father and a professional photographer, began assembling a visual mosaic that now allows us to reconstruct the genealogy, the relationships and the presences within the Wulz family album. Carlo continued and expanded this practice of family affection, making his two daughters the invariable, almost exclusive subject of this exercise in both private and public memory, until his death in 1928. The sisters grew into adolescence and adulthood behind their father's lens. In his later years, Carlo gained national and international acclaim for portraits featuring Wanda and Marion. Among those intended for public exhibition is the round-framed image you see, My figlia Marion, displayed at the exhibition of the Royal Photographic Society of Great Britain, the Camera Club in New York, the special exhibition of the Chicago Camera Club, all of them between 1927 and 1928. Wanda, on the other hand, was the subject of the photographic transformation captured in Spagnola, a Spanish woman, which was presented at the Terza Mostra Internazionale delle Arti Decorative in Monza in 1927. in My Figlia Wanda, exhibited in Monza 1927, we likely find the strikingly framed photograph with the Japanesque aesthetic, showing Carlo, daughter, posed by a table with a vase of flowers. Also worthy of mention are other portraits of his daughters, clearly attributable to Carlo through signatures, stamps, or evident stylistic links. Among them are several prints where Marion is wearing the same dress as seen in the Tondo displayed in London, New York, and Chicago. Into photographs exhibited in Trieste, and the beautiful double portrait of Wanda and Marion. The distinctive Franciscan style collar of Marion's dresses appears noticeable. The dress, paired with a pleated skirt in contrasting light and dark tones, suggests a collaborative relationship with Anita Pittoni, which will be explored later. Anita Pittoni's potential involvement as an active participant in the Wulz family album invites reflection. Indeed, rather than posing limitations, this connection enriches our understanding of their work. As of around 1923, as recorded in Marion notebook, treasured in the Alinari archive, the two sisters began collaborating actively with their father, becoming involved in the sharing of work and ideas that Carlo's authorship nearly faded. Private images, those not tied to publications or official exhibitions, emerged as genuine family photographic performances. Carlo captured his daughters as modern adult women, at once actors and co-directors of these poses. One particular portrait of Marion, seated and holding a clutch in her left hand, raises the possibility that the accessory was designed by Anita Pittoni, the Italian designer. This would place the work in the late 20s or early 30s, as suggested by geometric motifs seen in Pittoni's tapestries and technical drawing for scarves, and further illustrates this collaborative dynamic where the three women exchange the role of photographer, model, designer, and artist. However, this shifting and overlap of Wanda and Marion's roles intensified following their father's death that occurred in 1928, not only because of the sisters' resemblance, but also due to their mutual need for identity reflection, creating a dialectical renegotiation of space and roles. Vintage prints bearing the shared signature W and MW, formally attesting to their collaboration in project and ideas. For all these reasons, the exhibition showcases Wanda portraits and self-portraits, such as her image in a shimmering lame dress or a kimono. Attribution to one or the other Wulz sister remains uncertain, but this ambiguity is what makes their interpretation all the more interesting. The interchangeable roles before and behind the camera illustrate an all-encompassing understanding, a shared conceptual use of photography akin to the practices of French surrealists Claude Cahun and Marcel Moore, among others. We know that Wanda's reputation as a futurist photographer and her formal leadership of the family studio have long overshadowed Marion's contributions. Instead, Marion, often remembered for her darkroom work or reportage during Trieste's liberation, also created a significant body of private portraits of her sister, both photographic and painted. Some are strikingly modern, such as the negatives of Wanda in motorcycle gear. We may argue that for the Wulz sisters, photography transcended its professional function as a means of economic support, and it became a vehicle for recording their autonomous, proud lives, their friendships, and their engagement with bodily liberation and movement. A dialogue emerged in the many reciprocal portraits and self-portraits taken after the sister had taken over the studio. This is seen in their photographs, for example, before a mirror, but there was also a perfect role reversal revealing a sort of sister complicity when Marion photographed Wanda in an Egyptian dress in a photo dated circa 1930, with Wanda later photographing Marion in the same outfit and against the same background. This interplay of identity and performance in their photographic practice, wherein the Wultz sisters also carried on with their professional studio portraiture, so their personal and artistic relationship with their friend, Anita Pittoni, play a special role. And the second chapter is about from the circle with Anita Pittoni to the visibility of modern women. After Carlo passed away in 1928, Anita Pittoni moved in with the Wultz sisters for a few years. This circle of women, friends, and artists gave rise to a fascinating creative and experimental activity that reached its peak during the 30s. As mentioned, some portraits attributed to Carlo already feature garments linked to Pittoni's designs. These include photographs of Marion wearing a dress with a Franciscan-style collar, we said before, and however, these women's most original ideas began to flourish while they were living together. Nearly 3-4 years they lived together. It is worth noting that in the Wultz atelier, located on what was still called Corso Vittorio Emanuele in Trieste, Pittoni advertised her studio d'arte decorativa from 1928 to 1931, as shown on her business cards. She brought with her a wealth of resources, essays and catalogues on art and fashion, in addition to publication on dance and deliberation, erotic as well, of the body. As a creator and fashion designer, Pittoni was frequently on the screen photographed by the Wultz sisters. She appeared modeling her own clothes, such as in a portrait where she wore the dress made of striped broom fiber she created in 1939 for Giulia Bertolotti, the wife of the very known architect Gianluigi Banfi. The Wultz sisters also photographed Pittoni's design on other models. For instance, one portrait shows a young woman with a blonde bob wearing a knitted blouse with a light fabric collar. Pittoni's bold vision of modern fashion took center stage in the photographic performances created by the Wultz sisters themselves. They portrayed each other, becoming the first to express this aesthetic reconstruction of clothing as one of the defining displays of the early 20th century. This is how Wanda came to choose a self-portrait seated before a mirror and wearing a Pittoni dress to present herself at the prestigious Biennale Internazionale della Fotografia in Roma in December 1932 on the right. Traces of these photographic performances involving the three friends can also be found in further contact prints. In these, Marion photographed Wanda dancing in a gypsy style burlap ensemble designed by Pittoni. The outfit expressed a unique take on the wild and exotic imagery promoted by colonial exhibition of the time. These prints, along with the original technical sketches, were included in the exhibition in Trieste. Many other images document these frequent photography sessions, which existed at the intersection of professional practice, artistic experimentation, and personal ambition, a boundary navigated by the three women with remarkable finesse. For instance, a series of negatives preserved in the Alinari archives depicts portraits by Wanda of Marion, wearing Pittoni coats, cloche-style hats, and dresses. Another example is a portrait by Marion of Wanda, so the reversal, where forms and figures echo the designs sketched in Pittoni's stunning album of fashion sketches and patterns for cashon and fabric, this is the title, craft in 1928-1929 in tempera and pencil on paper, and featured in the exhibition. These are some reproductions. The collaboration between the Wultz sisters and Pittoni extended beyond the 30s, as evidenced by typewritten scripts and then drawn posters announcing events such as Da Wanda e Marion, 1944, Musica con figure, where Wanda performed Ravel's Bolero and Anita a Spanish tango. Their anti-conformist, anti-bourgeois ideas also discussed within official futurism, so the artists albeit with some contradiction, play significant roles in public debate. Through collective photographic performances and free use of the body, fashion projects, theatrical experiments, and textile creations, the Wultz sisters and Pittoni challenged centuries-old notions of authorship as an essential principle of artistic identity. As women, they used photography as a tool of empowerment, a tool capable of advancing a political project which, starting from an individual and private perspective, came to reflect shared historical and social need. And I stop here. Thank you.